This is Highway 129. It runs from the town of Thessalon 200 kilometers north to the next town, Chapleau. It was once a logging road that supplied one of the largest white pine sawmills this side of the Rocky Mountains. That's the Mississauga River, where a lot of logs were floated in the same direction down to that same sawmill. 50 miles that way is nothing but wilderness until Lake Superior and Highway 17. There's a maze of roads in that wilderness, and a good share of those roads are not on any maps. Our goal is to connect a route from Highway 127 all the way over to Highway 17. Poppins won't be joining us. When I asked her about going on a wilderness expedition, she said no thanks. I'd rather stay home and do almost anything else.
Yep, I said that.
But I'm going to meet up with a group of rowdy adventurers that I've known for a long time. We're going to talk about the history of the wilderness, and hopefully it doesn't get too dramatic. So let's see if we can connect through the maze until we reach Lake Superior. I'm Chuck, the channel's Restless Viking. Let's go on an adventure. So we've chosen a campsite to meet up at along Highway 129, but I came up a little bit early. There's a feature north of where we're going to meet and where we're going to head into the wilderness. That's pretty cool. So off we go to Aubrey Falls. So there's a footbridge to Aubrey Falls that you go over, and it's pretty cool. And up there, that's the dam. I think that's a retaining wall, maybe. That dam, which was built in the 60s, kind of controls the flow of the current. You can see the river's not flowing much today because they control it, and it's probably been pretty dry up here throughout the summer. But you can kind of see where the water's a couple foot low. So Aubrey Falls is kind of important to the logging history of the area. The water's been turned off normally, and you can see on the blackness out there on the rocks that the water usually comes pouring through there and kind of cascades around either side. But as you can imagine, if you send logs down this river, that when they get to these falls, they're going to get kind of splintered up and kind of damaged as they come through here, because it's very rocky, and that water pushes those logs through and kind of knocks them around and kind of damages the product that you're trying to send all the way down to Blind River for processing. So their solution for it was to build a 1 mile long log flare, or a chute that the logs could run down. That's kind of impressive. So if you get a chance, Aubrey Falls is a pretty beautiful stop up in this area. But I imagine the first of our adventurers are arriving down at camp, I don't know, 35 or 40 kilometers back south. So let's head out and see if we can't go meet up with them. The older I get, the more I understand that you never waste a good facility. So we're at Aubrey Falls, and I'm going to use the unlocked facilities before I head to camp. Often you have to bring your own toilet paper though. Mission accomplished. Off to the campsite. When I was 15, I stumbled into the Algoma wilderness with a friend. It's one of those places where you find yourself 12 hours from the nearest place that even remotely resembles civilization. It's rugged, untamed miles of forgotten roads and almost no one around. You can't help but feel small in a place like this, and that's the point. It doesn't care about you, and that's what makes it real. There's the miscreants right there. Got to approach with caution. That's Cougar. Oh my God, this lumberjack looking guy is Cupcake. You might remember him from our performance on Round Island. Oh, Cupcake's working on a fire, keep us warm. We got some soup going and some grilled cheese. We made one for Cupcake. Nice little riverfront view.
After we set up, we chatted while we waited for everyone to arrive, but a few of the crew had to back out at the last minute. Then Amy arrived around 9 p.m.
She's 7 minutes early from her.
That's pretty good.
So, we just had our last intrepid adventurer, AR, Alfa Romeo.
That's me, the glower.
So, yeah, right now we're at a campfire. We finally got started with the help of petroleum products.
Yeah.
And we're about to head out tomorrow. This is all we got. The rest of the crew didn't make it.
Yeah, man, no shit.
You got Starbucks. Tis morning at Camp Alpha, and all the intrepid adventurers are eating and packing up. With the spicy sauce and his eggs and sausage mix is Cupcake.
El Arriero hot sauce.
We got Cougar.
Hi.
The Jetboil
Queen.
Oh, that is a nice Jetboil. Look at that.
Wow.
It's a big one. We got AR drinking her pumpkin spice regular coffee. Coog sporting the Tiger Moth by Taxa Outdoors, I think. Isn't that who?
Yep.
Yeah. And Luxie, I had the tent. And Amy's got the quintessential adventurer lodging of inside the Jeep with reflectix. The logs from this river used to go down to Lake Huron, and then as they got out of Lake Huron, they would go into a hidden cove at Blind River to the sawmill. And this is a Crown Land campsite where it's pretty established, and found a cement pad, found some bricks in LaFoe Creeks over there. Now on the old logging road, they had a camp called LaFoe Camp, and we kind of speculate and wonder if this wasn't the site of that logging camp. And today we're going to head out to the, we're going to go that way, away from the sun, and about 50 miles, but probably 130 miles of road to get to Lake Superior. Hopefully we can make it. So it's our first stop, Black Creek, is that right?
I think so.
We are at Black Creek Outfitters, just a little store I think's been around since the 60s, owned by different families over time. They supply room board, fuel. So it's cash only. When you come up to these remote places, there's a couple things you want to do for fuel. You want to check ahead of time to see if they have fuel, because they might only get a delivery every couple weeks. And then you want to bring cash. That's got to be the fanciest overlanding interior I've ever seen. So here's how we're hoping it's going to shake out. This red line here is Ranger Lake Road, and that does bring us all the way over to 17, but Ranger Lake Road's a public road. It's well used. We want to do something up in the north. Right here's where we are, and we have an established route here that we know exists, and then we have mapped roads that go to here and a mapped road that goes up to here, and then that's where this road that turns off is unmapped, and there's actually a little spot in there that's unmapped. Then we can meet up with where Poppins and I last year did this route to go up to the little town of Eaton. So then once we get to here, we know that we have established road all the way over to Lake Superior and our destination. I don't know if it's gonna work out, but we're gonna give it a try. There could be all kinds of things, from tank traps that some of the vehicles aren't gonna make it through, or gates that are locked. So we'll see how it goes. Cupcake's coming around. So just north of Black Creek Outfitters is Aubrey Falls Outfitters, I guess it is. So we are cheating for about 2 miles. I didn't realize that the Cupcake route included a little bit of Ranger Lake Road before we split off and go into the bush. So Ranger Lake Road, officially known as Kings Highway 556, stretches 66.4 miles through Ontario's rugged wilderness. Originally designated 1956, it wasn't until the 1970s that it was finally extended to Highway 129. The drives up here are always so desolate and beautiful. Just taking a drive up here is worth it.
I totally agree. I've told lots of people to take drives up here, and they get all scared on me. Like, well, that's Canada.
Once we left Ranger Lake Road, we started the bush roads. Bush roads in Canada are a mix of passable roads, old deteriorating logging roads, and often new unmapped roads that are built to extract resources then left to be reclaimed by nature. Mapping those roads requires carefully tracing the route from satellite photos. Sometimes those photos are years old and the route has overgrown. We had a few dozen miles of unmapped roads on this route. Soon we encountered the sign that told us we were about to enter the wild road network where anything can happen. It announced, roads and bridges beyond this point are not maintained. Use at your own risk. So we're just north of the Sault. This isn't the largest tract of wilderness on the Great Lakes. It's probably not even the most remote, but it's one that you can access pretty easy, and it's huge. And Canada has huge tracts of wilderness that are probably possible because only 11% of the land in Canada is privately owned. 89% is owned by the government. I think it's 41% is owned by the national government and 48% is owned by the provincial government. Compare that to the United States, where 60% of the land is owned by private individuals and 40% is owned by governments. The public ownership of land in Canada has resulted in the majority still being undeveloped and wild. It's a good sign when a road is still getting infrastructure work on it for navigating across the hinterlands. Does that follow a power line at some?
This here will take you up to like Megaston Lake area.
Okay.
There's a power line there. And
Yeah.
years ago, I've taken that power line. I ended up at Wawa.
No shit.
Yeah.
But there is a road that goes off that eventually up probably halfway to Wawa that heads out to Freighter Road eventually.
Well, Freighter, well, it might connect up here now, yes.
Yeah.
Like Freighter comes out at Algoma Bay.
Yep. Hey, take care, guys. It was nice to meet you. So we got a little intel from them guys. They have no idea how the roads are, but he kind of thinks that we can get most of the way on the road. He kind of knew what I was talking about by some new roads up there that connect over. So I think based on what he said, we might be in pretty good shape, but I guess we'll see. If any of you guys have been to the pictographs in Lake Superior Provincial Park and you see the little island just offshore with a couple of cabins on there, that's his camp, and his family used to live there and on the bay, and then the highway wasn't there yet, and they would bring their fish down to sell, or they'd have to get supplies by dog sled. They would take it in Freighter Road, which is a road I hope we come out on. They would take a dog sled into the train, and they would get their supplies that way in the wintertime. But off we go with a little intelligence telling us that it might work what we want to do. The old growth white pine harvest of this area was almost all processed at the J.J. McFadden Lumber Company. So a great resource for anyone interested in the history of the area is the Timber Village Museum, which is on the site of the former sawmill, what's left of it. This area, you don't get any overlanders to speak of. I don't think I've ever met another group up here, but you do get a lot of locals that are out hunting or scouting or doing stuff like that. That was the east branch of the Abitadong River. So the harvest in this area existed in the late 1800s and continued on until probably today. It was kind of in its heyday right after World War I, I believe, and then through World War II. And at that time, the loggers from the area were jobbers. They didn't actually work for the sawmill. They were kind of independent contractors. They would fell trees on their own. They would cut them up with crosscut saws or horses, and they would get them ready for the winter pull or the winter transport, where they would transport it out of the bush and then over to the river, so that when the spring thaw came, they can run their logs down the Mississauga. Then in 1948, the largest known forest fire in Ontario happened in this area. Two separate forest fires, one in the north, one in the south, and they eventually merged right around 129. In the south, it was east of 129, and then in the north, it was on both sides of Highway 129. And it burned for, I believe, a few weeks. and destroyed millions upon millions of trees. And so after the forest fire, they kind of picked up the harvest because a lot of the trees were burned, and if they didn't get them harvested, they were going to succumb to insects. And that continued on into the 60s, I believe. They continued to harvest even though the forest fire had destroyed much of it. If the forest fire hadn't destroyed so much of the forest, they probably would still be harvesting today, but they would have harvested some old growth white pine for quite a long time. The logging they did here in 1955, they still used two-handed crosscut saws, and they used horses to skid the logs out on sleighs, these huge sleighs piled full of logs. Sometimes they'd use a truck pulling multiple sleighs of 8 to as many as 13, I've heard. On the sleighs, because there's no brake on a sleigh, when they're hauling these large log sleighs with 2-horse teams, when they come to a hill, they had to find a way to slow the sleigh down, because if not, would run the horses over. So they developed this cable braking system that they would hook up to the sleigh, and then the horses would take off, and the guy sitting on top of all the logs, he'd be swaying back and forth as this thing picked up speed. On top of the hill, they'd have a guy pulling on the cable brakes to slow the sleigh down, but it didn't quite slow it down completely. And the team of horses would have to run fast in front of the logging sleigh so that they didn't get ran over. And the area that we're going through today is basically that work area. And then in the spring, as the ice started to clear from the river, and then they would start running the logs down the river. The logs would head down the Mississauga to Lake Huron. They would gather them up and they would bring them over to Blind River for the sawmill, and then they would saw the timber up. And then from there, because it was on Lake Huron, they would transport millions upon millions of board feet. The United States, other parts of Canada, overseas. When the sawmill closed, I think it was 1960, they had discovered uranium in the area, and now, even today, the industry for the Blind River area is uranium mining. This saw was Poppin's idea. Part of the Algoma Hinterlands road crew. That's a little beaut of an overlanding saw there. Clear trails really quick with it. When you got to turn around on a wilderness road and don't have much room, you need a truck driver like Cupcake to get it done. Trail just keeps getting worse, so we found a turnaround, and now we're going to turn around.
A little bit. Whoa. There we go.
Perfect. So now that we've turned around to leave this trail that seems a little too overgrown for the trailer, we're gonna head back out to the tee-off because the other road looks like it's probably better. You never know, and that's what makes it interesting.
These are awesome.
Are they?
Yeah. They just had a demo.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's the most disgusting sandwich you've probably ever seen. Anybody want some gelatinous Vienna sausages? I guess that's a no.
Oh, I thought you might have grabbed your like your stuff.
So that bridge we just went over is brand new, and that kind of shows you how things go here. We're on a trail for the power line, and that bridge looked like it was a year or two old. Maybe even this summer was when it was built. And the trail on the other side was pretty wide open.
It's gotten narrower again.
And the road on the other side was in good shape, but then it's narrowed up on this side. immediately after the bridge. And the reason for that probably is the bridge was out for a few years and they finally replaced it. It looks like this summer. And so this trail wasn't maintained during that time when it was out. One tree so far across the trail. That ain't bad. So it looks like we're so about 40 miles in. We got to come up here. So this is a road. This road got too crappy. So up here is the next intersection, and this is a power line road, which makes it kind of nice, but kind of rough too at times. So then we come down the green. Then we can come up, head up the blue. We met some Canadian friends there who were out moose hunting, and they kind of gave us a little intel. They said we're gonna have a heck of a time. Kind of hard to keep the camera outside. Finally, as the sun sets on day one, my little brusher, its battery died. That's okay, because we got a few. We can get cattle down here, come on.
Yeah, we can drive cattle down.
So it's about 9:30. We found a decent road, but we're scouting for a flat spot to stop and camp. We were delayed a lot by about 3 miles of brush, and we're going to go hit the turn that heads north and west to the unmapped portions. So it's a frosty morning. Yesterday was a lot of good driving and 4 miles and 5 hours of brushing. But we're ready to hit it. This is what our road looks like now. Pretty nice. We don't know how long that's going to continue. We're going to head up to some power lines, and then we're going to hit the trail where we need to go.
Top of the morning.
Cougar, so we still got them all here, so that's good.
You gotta take a body count.
Yeah, exactly. So power line roads are always kind of a gamble. Sometimes you get really good roads, sometimes you get some overgrown roads and some pretty bad roads. So the Algoma district became much more well known when a group of artists called the Group of Seven. So the Group of Seven was a collection of 7 landscape artists that were around from 1920 to 1933, and they traveled the Algoma district extensively, from riding on the rails to painting on the shore of Lake Superior to going to parts of the interior. Their intended purpose was to create a national Canadian style of art, and they were pretty successful. So it's a very popular snowmobile area because in the winter things are a lot more passable, and this is a warm-up shelter that kind of gives us distances to different places. So our trail right now shares the power line trail, kind of shares the snowmobile route to Wawa, I think. And you can see that we're 148 kilometers from Black Creek, 71 miles from the Chapeau, and oh, so we got somebody that's not making it. We're gonna have to help them out. Did you need some whiskey, sir? Educational purpose of the thing. So if you need it, here's the emergency radio phone. So you got the little stove with a cute little frying pan, and it doesn't look like much in here, but believe me, if you're out here in the wilderness and you need to get warm, this is pretty cool. And it's got an outlet, solar power, so it's probably got a battery bank somewhere. And they usually leave it open. Oh shit. Oh, fire starter kit.
Emergency stuff, yeah.
That's pretty cool. Oh, so there's where you'd hook up the power, I think, to power the whole system. As I've stated before, Never waste a good facility. This is a nice one. So for snowmobilers, if you go that way, at this intersection you go to Chapleau. That way is Sault Ste. Marie and Searchmont. And that way is Wawa, and we're headed the Wawa way. We'll eventually cut off in a few miles to some unmapped trails. So we'll see how that goes. I think I'll cut it. Or should I get fancy and winch it out? Nah, cutting's gonna be easier. Well, Cougar made quick work of it. Here comes Cupcake in his Lexus called Lexi through the water feature. Look at this guy. He don't care. He's blasting through with his white interior leather, heated seats and everything.
No, he thinks you're a woman and you're trying to...
Right. North. So a little brunch about 10:30, little group effort. Let's go back here and see what Cupcake's got. No doubt he probably has a servant with him.
Take my picture. Look at this guy.
Take the picture over here.
I'm gonna take his picture too.
Thanks for the hash browns.
Yeah, man, those are wonderful. Trailside breakfast or brunch, Northern Ontario. Pretty good food.
The chuck box. So brunch is done. That's our track, the purple. We're here. We got to take the blue. This is unknown road right here and unmapped. But once we get to here, this is kind of unmapped too, but we took it last year. So we know that it's a pretty good road. Then we hit Freighter Road out and then to Highway 17. So far, I'm pretty optimistic that we'll make it. The troops seem like they're still kind of happy. So that's a good thing. The trail looks good. 74 miles total, and our total moving time is 8 hours and 45 minutes.
Cut it.
Or no, come right hard, sorry. Yeah.
What about the trailer?
I think the trailer will be fine. Worried about him sliding off the ditch though. I mean, you can bring a trailer on this trip if you want. It'll make your trip more interesting, but you're also going to damage it a little bit. Now the Lexus portion of this contraption is actually doing really well. So we just turned here at the unmapped.
Is bringing up the rear.
This blue line is not on the map. That's tracing from a satellite photo. It's always risky because you don't know how old the photo is. So the concern is that it's overgrown since the photo that you used to trace it, but it looks really good. It looks like we got about 15 kilometers of unknown, and then we'll hit some known trails. So far, so good. We've gone 82 miles so far, so I would say maybe 40 miles left. We haven't seen anyone since 3 p.m. yesterday. One more noted obstacle on the map coming up right here. So if we make it through that, we should be golden. I got to this bridge and it's just, there's flagging tape everywhere. And that's usually a sign that you should be careful. And I'm like, well, we took this bridge last year. What's the big deal? See how rotted the boards are right here. It's important that you stay on the metal. But these two pieces of metal are for semis. The middle looks like it's been opening up a little bit. So I don't know how long this bridge is going to be here. But you definitely don't want to drive on the, well, I guess you could. They look pretty solid, but you're probably going to want to drive. Oh yeah, that's not solid. You're probably going to want to drive on the metal. I think that's probably why they got flagging tape. Go let her know. So as far as the distance you cover, if you get gas at Black Creek, you're probably just fine. But even if you did that and you got to the end of the trail, you'll still have gas. But when you get onto the highway, it might be another lot of miles before you get to a gas station that has gas at the time and is open at the time that you get out. We might get out a little late, so we might be pretty close to empty. So having the spare fuel rations available is a pretty good idea. So the rain's turned a little bit to a wintry mix. And we make it to the Algoma Central Railway crossing, which means just 6 or 7 miles we're to Highway 17. The Algoma Central Railway, sometimes called the ACR, was a really important feature here in the Algoma district in that it was the mode of transportation inland. You could kind of cruise around Lake Superior and by boat and get your transportation done, but there was no highways, there were really no roads to speak of, except way over there at 129. Unfortunately, in 2015, passenger service was discontinued, but you can still take the ACR by taking the Algoma Tour train, which goes up past where we just crossed up to the Agua Canyon for a very beautiful view. So I'm waiting for the other guys to come down, and I see AR's just descending the hill. So you probably can't see me, but that stop sign right there is the stop sign for Highway 17. And semis rolling by. So we have made it from Highway 129, 130 miles about, to Highway 17 using only bush roads. So that was fun. And you can see that the weather's pretty crappy, so not a moment too soon. Well, that concludes the end of our successful expedition. Thanks to my friends here, my intrepid adventurer friends. The channel's Restless Viking. I'm Chuck.
I'm Cougar.
Cupcake.
Amy.
Thanks for coming along.